I am a man of the people of the tides. The sea is as much a part of me as the land which my God has allowed me to use, and for which I am under a sacred trust to protect and preserve for my nephews, just as my uncle did for me. Until recently, my people and the other people of Alaska were in danger of extinction by external forces. I can only compare these forces to the Great Pillow of China, which has absorbed and integrated various ethnic groups until they no longer have an identity. We are now in peaceful conflict with these threats to our nation. We are dredging our heritage and cultural value symbols from the gray and amorphous mass of the melting pot. We are redefining our lifestyle, our values, and our law. As a firm handhold in a radically changing world, this does not mean a revolt against the larger national culture. It only states that we are entitled to pride and knowledge of our group and national origins as the Irish, German, and other groups who had a nationality to the description American. There is one difference. We place our ethnic identity after the American. We were here when the others came. We are American Indians.
You are watching one of the surviving elders of the Tlingit Nation, a master of his cultural heritage, speaking in his own tongue to young children who understand what he is saying. There are not many such people left to us, perhaps only half a dozen. This program is about our efforts to make use of these surviving elders in such a way that the value systems of the Indians of Southeast Alaska can be passed along to young people for use in everyday life while the elders are still able to give this information to them as it was handed down to them since time immemorial. Our system of history requires that the uncle teach the nephew, but the uncles are no longer with us, and the larger culture requires that we be taught from our fathers and does not allow this method of history to be passed along from generation to generation as in the past. In recognition of the approaching loss of this ethnic resource, the Juneau Douglas School District, with the help of Mr. Lynn Sevdy, has put together an Indian Studies program which is attempting to reach back and reconstruct some of the teaching mechanisms which are still viable in the culture of the Indians of southeastern Alaska. This effort is now 3 years old and has as its primary objectives the improvement of the educational aspirations of the native students of Southeast Alaska, assisting dropouts to return to school, to help older dropouts to qualify for GED certification, the acquisition of scholarships for native students, and job seeking and placement for native workers. Of tremendous assistance in this project has been the support of the Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood, who have provided guidance and direction to the project directors in making best use of the native resources still to be found among us. Activities for implementation of the objectives in the Indian Studies program have included employing village elders, as you have seen, and of making use of younger Indian people who have acquired skills in the arts of the Indian and in the handiworks necessary to develop these arts. All of this work is carried on with the constant input of the parents of the children who are receiving the benefit of the effort. The parent group plays a vital role in judging the worth of activities and in suggesting various ways of improving or of implementing the program. This was not a hit-or-miss program. A formal needs assessment of the villages and towns of Southeast Alaska revealed certain critical needs of Native children and youth. At the first grade level, Native children have entered a new and different world. Their shyness and characteristic responses have been misinterpreted as a lack of ability in the past, putting them at a disadvantage in all school activities and resulting in failure and in a devastating dropout rate. A school-age youth not in school has a feeling of failure and regresses. With no recreational opportunities, these young people become victims of alcohol and other drugs, and their creativity and genius are lost to our society. Schools have meant failure to children, and Native parents have naturally resisted becoming involved with the schools. The problem is great, but the solution is within our grasp. Pilot programs activated in Juneau with Native children in 50 classrooms over the past 2 years have provided a model of success for Native children. Parents have become involved. In order to reverse the trend indicated in these needs, the answer is simple in design, though delicate and fragile in implementation. The Juneau Indian Studies program attributes the success of Native children to a combination of factors, which have included the provision of success activities for each child designed around his Native culture, and in the assumption that each individual involved in the program must openly and clearly manifest total acceptance of each child and his Native language, foods, clothing, parents, ancestors, and lifestyle. This acceptance must come spontaneously and without effort on the part of the teacher. The director of the program is Lynn Sevdy. He now shares some of the results of the project.
At a time when education is focused on accountability, it's a real pleasure to tell you about the Juneau Indian Studies program. The problem was recognized many years ago, but was focused in about 1970 on a need. 75% of the Indian children were getting D's and F's in the elementary school. 25% were getting A's and B's and C's. At the high school level in 1970, 60% of the students were dropping out. 2 out of 3 of the high school students were leaving in the Indian population. A program was implemented in 1972 and 3, field tested and modified, and implemented district-wide. Last May in 1974, we reviewed some of the statistics that we'd accumulated. These statistics were partly grades given by teachers and partly standardized tests and partly subjective data. From these scores, we found that 82% of the elementary school children are getting A's, B's, and C's. 14 to 15% are getting D's and F's. And we're going to work on that. We can improve that some more. At the high school level, out of 77 students last year, we had 1 dropout. And we've completely reversed the dropout trend. Now we're going to work on quality. And we're very proud of these statistics. And for an overview of the impact on Indian education, I'd like to share this chat with an old philosopher, John Hope.
Thank you, Len. As we have had these concerns, and I say we, I'm speaking of A&B because I have been involved for a long, long time with the Alaska Native Brotherhood and its various concerns. I think the statistics that you have referred to are very, very impressive and tend to prove the thing that we have always contended, that given an equal opportunity, our people, of course, will respond favorably. The Alaska Native Brotherhood has had concerns in the field of education from its very inception. In 1912, the A&B was formally organized here in Juneau. Most of the organizers came from the Sitka Training School, and thus many of them lived in Sitka. And one of the prime concerns, of course, was citizenship and the franchise that comes with citizenship. And in order to participate fully in community affairs, of course, you had to become educated. The A&B was very, very influential in its early days, and was a dominant influence in the communities. And when the A&B took a position, and normally it took a position after free discussion of its members, and it still functions in that manner, it decided that one of its high priorities would be education. And it has been, and it continues to be, education. The A&B realizes that education is flexible. The A&B itself has sort of bent with the times. And as an illustration of this, in 1917, the A&B Constitution made it a matter of expulsion from the organization if you spoke the Tlingit language in a meeting. Continuously from that time, the A&B said you must discontinue those things in your culture that would tend to inhibit your advancement in the society in which you are a competitor. Anything that would tend to slow you down in your advancement, they wanted to discourage, and they did that. The cultural aspects of our Tlingit society were discouraged. That was in order for our people to take full advantage of the formalized education in the new society. So in order to impress that upon its membership, they said if you spoke the language, if you practiced the culture, you would be expelled from the organization. In 1962, they took another look at the situation and said, well, we're going to be losing some of those very, very valuable parts of our culture if we don't start encouraging the people to participate and to learn. It was almost too late. So in 1962, the A&B, as a theme of its convention, I believe it was native culture. We had to restore the culture to grasp some of those things that we were losing. The leadership felt that we had to retain many of the more favorable aspects of our culture. In the 1970s, the early 1970s, the Indian Studies concept was broached here in Juneau, and the A&B again, of course, discussed this in its meetings and took a vote on it and decided to support the Indian Studies concept. The Indian Studies concept, of course, is more valuable, just like any educational effort, is more valuable when the whole community participates. It's all well and good that we as a native population learn those things and try to retain those elements of our culture that make us a better people. But it's much better if the non-native community also learns those things in our culture that are of great value. Some of the things that our people have been noted for throughout the world are the totem-related aspects of our culture, the art portions of our culture. We have, of course, songs also that, because of the wealth of the country here, we had a lot of leisure time. We were able to develop art forms, both in the field of those things that you develop with your hands, and the songs that come from the people as a part of their culture. I think one of the very valuable aspects of the Indian Studies has been the exposure to the non-native community of the art forms and the other forms that come with the social structure, which is quite complex. The social structure of the A&B, the Tlingit people, enabled the A&B to capitalize on these things and to strengthen the organizational structure of our people in the A&B and in the community as a whole. So the A&B of late has been participating in all those things that tend to make a community. The A&B contributes, as all other aspects of the community, to a total community effort. And so, Len, I think the studies and the statistics that you have given us earlier tend to show the Native community and the non-Native community the value of the Indian Studies program.
These classroom scenes and the activities you are seeing reflect an acceptance on the part of the program people of certain universal needs which are present in all children and which must be met in such a way that a valid system of values can be developed by each child participating. Each activity is directed toward one or more of these. They include a need for affection, the friendship, love, fondness, and caring for and being concerned about people. Affection is provided by all program members, both to the children they teach and to each other. Respect, honor, courtesy, recognition, admiration is derived in much the same way, with the important addition of having the elder masters instill this value in young people. Well-being is stressed, as previously mentioned in the needs assessment, to provide a feeling of health and of happiness, and a feeling of contentment. Power, decision-making influence, authority, and leadership is demonstrated in the parent group determining what is best for the children and for encouraging decision-making and authority on the part of the children themselves. Enlightenment, the need for knowledge and of education, the need to learn and to understand, occurs spontaneously in all of these activities, while knowledge is an ongoing acquisition. The educational methods used are those pertinent to the cultural influences being felt. Skills are acquired from the very youngest to the oldest members of the class groups. The development of ability and talent in carving, dances, the learning of language, the assimilation of legends and their meanings, all of these contribute to enlightenment and to skill. The real meaning of wealth is explored. The possession of the basic needs of life, adequate food, clothing, and shelter, and a little beyond, property and income, are interpreted as wealth, in contrast to the usual meaning of the word. Finally, rectitude, defined in terms of personal responsibility, personal honesty, a feeling of justice and fair play, of trust and the keeping of trust. These are the things passed along from the elders and the staff to these young people. The happenings of centuries past and their effect on the values of our young people are brought to us in an aesthetically pleasing, vibrant, and accurate way. Our dances and songs are our history. They are just as permanent and far more enjoyable than the transcribed markings on paper of an alien culture. Our songs and our choreography tell us who we are, where we are in terms of ourselves, our clan, our nation, and the world. They tell us what has value and what will endure. They tell us how to act, what to wear, what to eat. They tell us of the pride of our heritage and why. They tell us of our God and of His many ways. They tell us of our relationship with nature and of our kinship to the wild beings of nature. They tell us of our great men and why they were great. They tell us of our law and how we must obey it. They teach us of medicine and of healing. They tell us of our responsibilities to ourselves, our kin, and the world. They tell of our respect for youth and of age, for ourselves and each other. They tell us of war and of peace. They tell us of our conduct and how it must be at all times. They teach us loyalty, steadfastness, honor, and faith. They teach us fun and laughter and the time for smiling. And they teach us of grief, of dying, of enduring pain, and of suffering. And finally, they teach us of living together in harmony and mutual respect, to use ourselves in our work and at leisure. What more does written history do?
I am a man of the people of the tides. The sea is as much a part of me as the land which my God has allowed me to use, and for which I am under a sacred trust to protect and preserve for my nephews, just as my uncle did for me.